What is up, everybody?
It's a special broadcast because, Doug, tonight you are going to be a GM.
Yes.
By the Raw at SmackDown, and you have to compete against me. So, the gloves, the niceties here that we have on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, those gloves are going to have to come off in a few minutes.
Awesome. Just what I want. Manage more people. Exciting. More people to manage during a global pandemic. This will be awesome.
Folks, if you couldn't tell from the context of Doug and I's conversation, or didn't see last week when we previewed what we're doing, tonight in our main event, we are doing a mock draft. And if you watched Raw and SmackDown this past week, you saw their version of this year's WWE draft, and maybe they got some things wrong in your mind, maybe they got some things right. But tonight we're going to do it our style, and then you can tell us how we did. But before we do all that, Doug, we got a little business to take care of. It is time to get on to the news. There is a lot of news to cover, and I know I want to give as much time to our draft as we can, so I'm going to fly through this if that's all right.
It's all right with me. Let me know what's going on, because I have no idea again this week.
Well, first we'll start with, the real world kind of news interfering in the world of professional wrestling as it's been doing for the last many months. But we've had several positive COVID tests stemming from a recent series of indie events. An indie series of events called The Collective, and because of that there is ripples that are going through the rest of the wrestling world, because Ring of Honor now has had to pull a number of their talent from its upcoming TV tapings in the name of safety, because those talent had been on these indie shows, and there are 3 talents that we know for sure on the indie world. I had not heard of any of them that have come forward with COVID positive tests at this time, but the contact is such that there's a large swath of the indie world that could have repercussions in this outbreak, and that would extend, Doug, to both Impact and AEW, because there are many talent that perform for both that also performed during these weekend of shows known as The Collective on the indie circuit. So there could be ramifications for the big boys in this one, and the fact that many of their talent may have been exposed. There's also a new report, this also pandemic related, but there's a new report that's coming out from WrestleVote that suggests that WWE now is looking at a full-time regular schedule, that their normal schedule of Friday Night SmackDown, Monday Night Raw, and then the weekends having house shows in between. That is likely now, according to this report, not to return until 2022.
Okay.
It appears that WWE is looking into the possibility that they may have to throw in the towel on going back to what ever is normal for all of 2021 when it comes to their normal touring schedule and their TV schedule. Now that doesn't mean that special events won't take place in front of fans. As you can see now in the wrestling world, we're starting to see limited amounts of fans allowed in certain shows. This just more means that you might have a WrestleMania that has somewhat of an audience. That's something that's supposedly being talked about, is how to do WrestleMania next year with some fans in attendance. But what it does mean is that it looks like WWE is apparently seeing this as a really long-term situation that could affect all of 2021 as far as getting back to what they were doing pre-pandemic in regards to live touring and TV production. Doug, you're going to hate this one. I know this will break your heart, but reports are, I'm sorry to tell you, that Raw Underground is finished.
What?
I know. And here you've been missing what was the end of Raw Underground, but sadly it looks like it may be no more. It's not been on air for several weeks now, after an initial 8-week run where it was on and featured in the final hour of Raw for 8 straight weeks. The reported reason is that the COVID risk associated with the environment created by Raw Underground is the reason they thought it was just not worth it. As you know, a lot of the talent that are pretending to be fans around the, not really a ring, but around the performance area where Raw Underground takes place are actual performance center students, and there have been a couple of outbreaks here recently at the performance center. So by doing Raw Underground, they realized that they're exposing Raw talent as well as the Raw production team to potentially another group of people who are in their own different bubble, and that there are too many risks involved there with COVID. And beyond all that, I just like to think the real reason is probably because it sucks.
I'd like to think that once again, Vince is watching our show and has decided, you know what, those guys are onto something. We should just pull this all together.
Actually, I don't know that he was watching this show, but I think you are right about Vince deciding that it's time to pull it. Apparently, this is a Shane McMahon idea, something that he's wanted to do for a long time. And Vince supposedly, if these reports are to be believed, has never really got it and has never been all that high on it. So I think he's using COVID as cover for telling his son why his little underground fight idea is not going to be on air anymore.
But it's not a bad idea. It's just an idea done badly, I think, right now.
You are correct. There is definite ways to bring more of a shoot fighting element into the world of pro wrestling. I think Ring of Honor is doing that right now with their pure title.
Right.
And even WWE has a very much a version of that now going on in NXT UK with the Heritage Tournament. So there's definitely a way to bring a shoot style into the world of professional wrestling. But you are right; it is just poorly executed.
Yeah, never a fan of that. Unfortunate that there's just this global pandemic continues to eat away at the things we love, but at least everybody's being safer with Raw Underground no longer a thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't producing good television, and I don't think that it was doing anything to move the needle ratings-wise. If anything, I'd be surprised if that wasn't some of the lower-rated segments, just because it was truly bad, and no one we know was really being featured. So, yeah, good riddance. It's not necessarily official, but for the time being, it's suspended, and hopefully it just goes away, doesn't come back. But we'll see. And speaking of going away and probably never coming back, Alberto Del Rio. Bad news for Del Rio, and I know that he has had a history of problems that have followed him throughout his career. And as a talented individual, it's a shame that he is apparently such a mess of a person and truly a not a high-class individual, Doug. This is some really bad news. He has a trial date scheduled for January 1st, and he is being tried on 1 count of aggravated kidnapping and 4 counts of sexual assault.
Okay.
If he is convicted of all of these accounts, Doug, he could spend the rest of his life in prison. Del Rio was arrested back in May after the victim reported the abuse and kidnapping to the police in San Antonio. Del Rio had accused the alleged victim in this case of cheating. So I'm guessing they had some sort of relationship themselves, and though she denied the cheating, he still became enraged the more she denied it. And according to her and the police reports, he would strike her several times before forcing her to wear a dress and dance for him. And then he allegedly threatened to kidnap her son and drop him into the middle of the road somewhere if she did not stop crying during the incident. The police documents then go on to document and report that Del Rio brutally sexually assaulted her. So these are extremely disturbing and serious charges against Del Rio that, if true, obviously need to be punished accordingly. And if true and found guilty, it will be punished accordingly. It looks like Del Rio is spending the rest of his life in a jail cell. I know, it's hard to transition from that, isn't it?
You got any good wrestling news this week?
I have some good news. We'll end on a good note. I put that in there intentionally to switch to some things a little lighter because that is very serious and dire. But OVW, that's probably a name that you haven't thought about because I hadn't thought about it in a long time. And probably most wrestling fans haven't thought of it and heard of it in some time. But Ohio Valley Wrestling is based out of Louisville. And for many, many years, a decade really, that it was a feeder organization and a training site for WWE. So much talent came to the WWE through Ohio Valley Wrestling, and we're talking folks like John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar. Those guys, that era of wrestlers, came through Ohio Valley Wrestling. That is what WWE used as a performance center before there was a performance center, before there was an NXT. Mm-hmm. Well, OVW, even though they didn't have the WWE affiliation for a good decade now, starting with Florida Championship Wrestling, the Performance Center, and then NXT, they still existed and still were considered themselves a school and a training center. Well, they have their own now national broadcast show they inked a deal with Anthem Broadcasting for 2 new weekly wrestling programs to air on Game Plus Network, which I was not familiar with, but apparently It is carried by many cable and satellite providers, as well as free streaming services such as Zumo, which we discussed here a few weeks ago on our episode that we dedicated to cord cutting and professional wrestling. So on Sundays, so starting today, in fact, Ohio Valley Wrestling will have 2 weekly TV shows that are going across the coast. So, I mean, we got
cool.
one more, wrestling brand now, I guess, that has national exposure for your wrestling enjoyment out there. As if you didn't have enough to watch already, you might want to check out Ohio Valley Wrestling's 2 TV shows on the Game Plus network starting today. And then Doug will end on very much lighter notes, just with a couple of congrats. So first, congrats to The Rock, who this week, who would have ever thought that the most electrifying man in sports and entertainment would just become the biggest name in entertainment in general. But this week on Instagram, he reached a milestone when it came to followers that officially has made him the most followed man on all of social media. So that is says a lot to his star power, so congrats to him. And then congrats also to another semi-retired wrestler and part-time foe of The Rock, John Cena, who apparently secretly got married this week to actress Shay, I'm going to butcher her last name, Shiratzada.
Let's just go with Cena now. The new Mrs. Cena.
The actress he met on set of one of his movies, and they began dating immediately after the tumultuous breakup that he had with Nikki Bella. But apparently without informing anyone other than close friends and family, the Cenas went off and got married this week. So congrats to them.
So what, 6-7 years with Nikki Bella, and less than a year with this chick, and now he's married after all that. Is love a work, Kevin?
Doug, that might be something we should do on our separate channel, Storytellers Union. Like a real album title is Love of Work. We've written the world of our music and our wrestling fandom here, and
Jerry was gonna love that idea.
Love may in fact be a word. I'm going to guess the new Mrs. Cena probably was more in line with John when it comes to the subject of kids, because it seems that was the big hold up between he and Nikki. So I guess all is well that ends well. If he's hopefully in a good and stable, happy relationship, Nikki seems to be doing great with their new child and her new marriage. So congrats to everyone except this week, except Alberto Del Rio.
That's not funny. I don't know why I'm laughing.
You make your bed, right?
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, with Del Rio, that's not the first time, we've heard stories like this about him going back to his time with Paige and, before and after that. So maybe there is indeed smoke where there's fire, or fire where there's smoke, however that goes.
We will cover both the fire and the smoke, so stay tuned here to the Two Bros Wrestling Show, and whatever happens when it comes to the trial and sentencing of Alberto Del Rio, we'll be on it. But now, Doug,
now
bigger and better and happier topics. So now the kid gloves come off, the niceties come off. It's time for the Two Bros Wrestling Show Mock Draft 2020 edition, where we pick who we think who's going to build this roster to outdo the other one. So you want to get to it?
Let's do this. Let's jump into it.
So here's how the mock draft is going to go down. We're going to flip a coin to decide which one of us, Doug or I, picks first. When we get a second coin flip, that's going to decide which one is the GM of Raw and SmackDown. And for our purposes, Doug, all titles are considered vacant, because I know that sometimes what WWE will do is that they will use the title as storyline points. Like you and I here, we're trying to build what we think is the best show from the talent available. We're not like concerning ourselves as, well, we need the Intercontinental Champion or we need the U.S. Champion, that kind of stuff. I think bogs down the exercise we're doing here. And we're going to do the same thing that WWE did. We're going to use the same talent they had available to them. So that means only active, full-time talent. So, what that means, folks, is that Doug and I aren't going to be fantasy booking and promoting our favorite NXT underground folks, or, putting The Rock on there, Brock Lesnar, Becky, or folks that, aren't available to wrestle right now. We're also not going to do the stupid thing that Doug and I hated on about the draft, because it makes zero sense that you can take an entire faction full of people. And Doug, it makes really zero sense this past Monday on Raw that the anarchist group, Retribution, got drafted. Yeah, why take a faction and then, hey, these are folks that are intent on destroying your program and constantly interrupting your broadcast. Let's draft them. Makes no sense. And we're going to do this for 10 rounds, folks. We're going to have a 10-round draft between Doug and I. And we want to make sure, too, this is not some one-sided, draft. We're going to make sure that every roster at least includes one male talent, one female talent, as well as a tag team. Because we'll take tag teams together. We just won't take 5-6 people together because that makes zero sense.
Tag teams with no factions. Gotcha.
All right, Doug, I'm done sharing my screen. I think that sets the rules. If I understand them and you understand them and you're good to play by them, you ready for this coin toss?
I am. Let me get us back to a full screen on my end since I'm actually recording us over here.
Beautiful faces.
All right, there'll be some sort of cool edit there. And okay, so how do we do this? Because I don't have a coin. I've got some dice. I could do a high roll.
I got one right here. You call it heads or tails, Doug?
All right, heads, of course.
Heads. Heads it is, my friend.
All right, I'm going to take SmackDown.
You pick first.
I'm going. Am I picking my? Wait, am I picking my brand or my person?
Right now, I'll do another coin flip, and you tell me what you say. Heads.
Heads, yeah.
Raw,
Okay.
And for SmackDown.
All right.
You are SmackDown, my friend.
Excellent, excellent. All right, let me make me a Google Doc here so I can keep track of my choices. So, okay, SmackDown. I'm SmackDown. I want Reigns. And do I get Heyman with Reigns, or is Heyman a separate pick?
I would say that I would say your advocate can come along with you. I don't think you need to make a separate pick for that. It's not like you're taking an entire stable of anarchists or anything.
All right.
That was going to be my first pick too, Doug, because I think that's a smart one. And who would have thought? Let's just give them credit where credit's due while we got a second here. Who would have thought a year ago if we said that we were going to be doing a mock draft, you and I picking our rosters that we would want, that we would even pick Roman Reigns, much less both wanting for number one, right?
Right. See, I already have a plan in my head about a stable I'm going to create, and it starts with the tribal chief. So.
Well, I cannot fault you for that pick. If I had been able to go first, I'd have probably done the same. But for the first draft pick of Raw for tonight, I'm not doing this because it's champion for champion. But if Roman's off the table, I'm honoring the work of Drew McIntyre.
Gotcha.
And all he's done over the last couple of years to put himself into a position to. I think that right now Raw and SmackDown really are. The real shows are doing a good job of building around the right guys. I think they got the right guys at the top of each of those brands. So I'm not really all that surprised that they're now at the top of our mock brands too.
All right, let's see. My tribal chief needs a good baby face to battle with, but I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm gonna go ahead and go with Naomi.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, explain.
I'm building a stable, Kevin.
That's the brain of the tribal chief.
I'm building a faction.
I see. Okay.
I'm building a dynasty here.
I'm not building a faction. Since I've started with Drew, I think that for the second pick in the second round here for Monday Night Raw, I'm going with AJ Styles.
Oh.
I know that AJ is on the back end of a career, but to me, AJ is kind of like the modern day Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels in his late 30s and 40s somehow was as good as he was in his 20s. And I think, considering some of the younger talent that I'm hoping to take in this draft, or trying to think in terms of building a roster, not only can AJ still go, he's one of those guys I think that would benefit the younger talent on the brand by just being able to be around someone like AJ. Plus, in this fantasy booking world, we've not seen AJ versus Drew, and I think that could be fantastic.
True.
Doug, we're on round 3 for you already.
All right, I want Bobby Lashley. Because I'm bringing him to SmackDown and I'm doing him right.
Yeah, Bobby Lashley is one of those guys that you look at him and he looks like $1 million. Like this guy, you could build a whole brand around. and he just kind of hovers around the mid card and kind of gets forgotten about.
Yeah, but I think he will make a great a babyface Bobby Lashley, if done right, will make a great foil to a tribal chief with a tribe. So that's what I'm building on here. I'm already fantasy booking with my fantasy draft.
Hey, that's the way to do it. I'm all about it. So you already got some female talent on your roster. I want to do the same. So to conclude the third round, Raw is going to take Sasha Banks.
Oh.
Sasha is not only frontline female talent in my mind, she's also someone that, despite having been around the world title scene for a good part of her tenure, never seems to be the person. I think that there's a chance to make her. There's no reason why she shouldn't be considered on par with like a Flair or a Becky or someone like that. So that's what I hope to do with her on my brand. But again, a veteran talent and someone that could just lead that women's division, of course, on Raw.
Nice pick.
We're moving now to round 4. And SmackDown's got a pick here in the 4th round.
So I'm going to go with the Usos. I'll take the tag team. Because, I can't have a tribe of Samoans without my Usos.
And, Doug, that actually leaves me in a bit of a spot because, they were on my list too. Because I know we wanted to make sure that we weren't just picking all the male wrestlers here, that we wanted to give fair game to the tag teams and the female performers as well. But as you and I have lamented, WWE isn't really high on tag teams. There's a couple of tag teams in WWE that I would consider among the best tag teams in the world. But considering the size of WWE, it's not nearly as many as you find in organizations with much smaller rosters. There's just not a lot of great tag teams in
There's really not.
So you go in the Usos, I would consider these guys two of the best tag team wrestlers in the world today, and they're definitely energetic, they're definitely charismatic, and I think that you could build a tag team division around them. I'm going with the Street Profits. That's who Raw's taken for round 4 of this mock draft. Got to get. I want the smoke on Monday Night Raw.
I think after this we should negotiate a deal where we unify those tag teams too, like in like a dual brand pay-per-view. We unify those tag teams and have them move back and forth across brands, just like the women's tag teams.
I'm all for that. In fact, I think there's too many titles as it is.
Absolutely.
I would love to see a day. And I loved it when there was I loved it when Chris Jericho unified the titles.
Yes.
Back in the day. The idea that you have a world champion. It's one world. Let's have one world champion for our organization. And the top guy on Raw could be your Intercontinental champion.
Yes.
The top guy on SmackDown could be the U.S. champion. Elevate those titles, and then your world champion and your female world champion, just like your tag team does now, could float back and forth between the brands, open them up to a lot more possibilities when it comes to feuds. And I know that there's part of this whole brand split idea that Vince has a hard time with wanting to stick to because, he wants to move guys so often, and not just in a time like this with the draft. But you have one champion that can go float across both brands. That's the perfect opportunity for Vince to take that talent and mix them in with other talent on a different show without having to break his own rules.
Absolutely.
Is why they don't do that. I'm all for you. So let's negotiate.
Yeah.
Once we got our shows up and running.
Let's see. Who's 1, 2, 3? Wait.
You're starting the 5th round.
Oh my goodness! Already the 5th round.
Yeah.
Announcers on the table. Our announcers on the table.
I'm going to say we just give announcers. I don't think we need to draft announcers unless you want to draft an announcer.
Well,
I'll take one of your picks from you. What do you think about announcers?
Because in my mind, it works. I need a Samoan announcer. I need Joe. I need Joe to fill a Taz type role, behind the commentary desk, to put over what Paul Heyman doesn't put over in the ring, to put over the faction, kind of like Taz did with Aces and Eights or whatever it was back in the day. I need Joe on SmackDown for that.
It's sort of like Taz is doing now on AEW.
Exactly, with his own faction. Yeah.
Yep, his own faction.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and give you Joe. I don't want to take that pick from you, but because I like that idea. I want to watch that program.
In that case, I need some more baby faces. I'm taking Sami Zayn and turning him babyface. You know, Sami is a great babyface. He could have been the next John Cena if they would have just pushed him as such back in the day. So I want Sami Zayn.
That's funny that you say that because, you know, looking at our list so far, outside of the first couple of picks, which of course are, you know, some main event talent right now, we're taking folks that in WWE's actual draft went much later on than what we're taking them. So I think that shows that in our mind there's a lot of talent that is undervalued out there right now by Vince.
Yes.
Sami is fantastic. And he's a fantastic heel.
He is a fantastic heel.
He is a baby face.
Yeah.
And if you have him as a babyface, he can do that too. He's really that good. Love that pick, but for number 5 here for Raw, I'm going Keith Lee. Keith Lee is money.
Yeah.
Keith Lee is one of those that I think that Vince might actually see what we, the fans, see in Keith Lee. If you look at how quickly he rose through the NXT ranks, and the fact that for the most part he's been well positioned thus far on Monday Night Raw, and hopefully that will continue. But yeah, I need some baby faces too, and Keith Lee is one of those guys that's just instantly likable. Big man, so he can work big man style. He can work with smaller talent because he can also move for a big man. He can really do it all. He's a 5-tool player, so I'm happy to have Keith Lee on the Raw brand.
Very good choice.
Back half, man. We're in the back half now.
Yeah, I know. I was just counting our choices here. Wow. Well, you know what? Whether they're working against each other or with each other, you know, you cannot beat the real life friendship of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So you've not scooped up KO yet, so I'm grabbing him.
No arguments from me on that. He's another one, Doug, that I know that we think of as a heel just because when he wants to be nasty, he can be extremely nasty. But when he goes on the babyface side, just like Sami, like a guy that does both things extremely well. Kevin Owens is a very believable person in his promos, and because of that, when he decides to go baby, he can really make you believe it. And yeah, him and Sami as a team. That's what I was going to say. As enemies.
Exactly. You know, I've got a second tag team here. You know, to bump heads with the Usos if I so choose to go that way, and somebody can bounce around brands once we get that deal negotiated behind closed doors. All right, who you got?
Well, I'm going for someone that wasn't highly valued in the real draft, and someone that I think that would be valuable in any role that you put him in. I know that his mic skills need some work, but his in-ring skills are as good as anyone who has ever done it. I'm going to put Ricochet on my roster. If you talk about someone I think that they first decided was going to, you know, be a huge player, and then they really stopped his push, like really put the brakes on him for some reason, and now he's just floating around in the lower mid card. Makes no sense.
None.
Yeah, none. And you know, he had that nice little run with the Intercontinental title, but that seems like been years ago at this point because he's been so absent, really, from anything meaningful. And I'm looking at my roster here. I'm thinking Ricochet, AJ Styles.
Oh,
I mean, gosh, it writes itself, right?
It does.
So let's do right by Ricochet, well, by the Kentucky boy.
Paducah's own, right?
That's right.
How many we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is starting on number 7, are we?
This is round 7. SmackDown's pick.
Man, I just have 3 more picks, so I've got my stable built. Now I need to fluff out my roster around what?
It's harder than you think when you start to sit down and do it, isn't it?
It really is. I need some more women, so I'm going to go with Alexa Bliss.
Oh. you know she was on my short list of talent I wanted to take.
Yeah, I know. I figured she would be. I need some more talent on my female talent. So
I love Little Miss Bliss. We talked about some of the folks, and I think that you and I tend to look at some things here very similarly is that you want players that are good utility guys. Like they can do the tag
Yes.
team thing, they can do the face thing, they can do the big man thing or the small man thing. Like for her size, she can either be the underdog or she can be brutal. I mean, when I first saw her and her little sprite, little pixie-like character, she was so darn cute, honestly. Like just like spunky, like, oh, I love her. She's great. Who wouldn't root for her as a babyface underdog? There's no way in the world that she could ever be a heel, though, because she's just too wholesome looking.
Until that instant she changed on NXT, and just that heel persona was just born.
Yeah.
That look she had.
She's as good a heel as anybody, male or female, in the business.
Yep.
She really is. And the stuff she's doing with the Fiend right now is spot on too. I mean, she's carrying that in my mind. Good choice, very good choice. I'm like you. I only have one female talent thus far, so I'm going to pick somebody who I think it doesn't get the credit. I don't think that Alexa does. She gets the credit here on the Two Bros Wrestling Show, and I think that we're seeing the start of her maybe getting some credit. You know where I'm going with this. I love me some Zelina Vega.
I do.
That woman is the best when it comes to facial expressions.
She is.
Anger, smugness, shock. And all this was at ringside when things were happening to her men. And now that she's being perceived more as an in-ring talent instead of just an outside-of-ring talent, she's doing that for herself.
Yeah.
And the girl can wrestle. I mean, she is amazing in the ring, too. So I'm very happy to have Zelina on my roster as a top 10 pick. I think she deserves a top 10 pick.
Well, I hate to break up a happy family, but if you're going with Zelina, I'm taking her real-life husband, Aleister Black.
Another one that was on my short list that if you didn't get to him first, I wanted him. But I believe Aleister was taken really late in the WWE draft, too. I can't remember exactly where, but it was obvious by the positioning that they took him in that it wasn't, he wasn't getting that prime gotta have him kind of spot, which, again, I think that is, he's been on the Raw brand, now I guess SmackDown, long enough that, don't you think they should have been able to do a little bit more with him by now?
So, I'd read, or maybe I saw on one of our shows like ours on YouTube, that Black was taken off TV a while back because Vince wanted a character change and didn't want him to get shoehorned into the Aleister Black character, and really saw a lot in him. But then when he came back, I'm not sure what really happened with that. So.
Huh, yeah. Yeah, it makes no sense. The man really deserves better, and maybe he'll get it now on SmackDown. I know that, on your version of SmackDown, he'll definitely get some better. So for round 8, we're on round 8 for Raw. I'm actually going with someone I don't have on my list because I made myself a small list. But I think this is someone who will also help round out my women's division, and somebody who I think is yet to really gain traction in the real WWE world. But Bianca Belair.
The EST.
She is the EST. That is the strongest, most athletic woman perhaps in all of wrestling right now. And she's not really had a chance on the main brand to show that side of herself yet. So I'm sitting here looking at Sasha Banks and Zelina with Bianca Belair. I'm feeling pretty good about the start of the women's division.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, we've got Charlotte and Becky out. I can't believe neither one of us has taken Bayley yet. I mean, you've got Banks, so I need to take Bayley at this point to help build my division. So
when I went off my list to snatch Bianca, the one other female talent I had on my short list was Bayley. And you're right. You need an anchor. I definitely didn't want this exercise to be us just picking some of our favorites. We got to think of it like a business, and Roman's money and Drew's money, and
right.
And then you got to have those veterans mixed in. And Bayley's one who's still got a lot left to give, and I think she could be a leader for your young female talent over there on your version of SmackDown.
Yeah.
A good choice. All right, so now we're to pick number 9. Which means Doug's got one more pick, and these are my next to last one, so I got to make this one count. I am going to go another one maybe out of the box, Doug. I don't know because he would be eligible because he is a member of Monday Night Raw. He was drafted. I don't know what dumb name they're calling him, but I'm going to call him by what I'm going to call him. Dominik Dijakovic is my pick at number 9. We're dropping the whole dumb retribution anarchist angle thing.
Thank you.
He is a full-time roster member, and he is a man with size, a man who can speak.
Yes.
Well, he's got technical ability if you want to get down on the mat, and he's not shown it in his new persona, but as you and I, Doug, know from his work in Ring of Honor and NXT and things, he can fly.
Yes.
He can take off those ropes, too. So I think that there's money in a young talent like that. I'm taking him as the 9th pick for my version of Monday Night Raw.
Excellent choice. Excellent. He was. So I was thinking about Retribution and those ridiculous names they have too.
Like Flapjack or something.
Flapjack and T-Bone and Left Eye and what? Let me look at my roster here because yeah, I think I want my 10th and final pick. I'm going to go with Mustafa Ali. Has a great look. He has a great character, and it has really great like AJ Styles potential to become that if given the chance. So,
even though I don't like the whole like leader retribution thing, or just because I don't like retribution in general, but it could be an opportunity for him to at least get that mic time to show that there's another level to him that we've not seen on TV yet, because in-ring wise, you're correct. There's really no limits to him as far as that goes. If he can show that he can carry the charisma and mic side of things, then the sky really could be the limit for him. So that's a good choice for your final pick. But it is hard because look at all the talent you're leaving out there.
I know there's so much talent on the table. You know, we.
So for my 10th and final pick for Monday Night Raw, we are going to bring him back. The Monday Night Messiah, Seth Rollins.
Okay. I was getting ready to remark that neither one of us had even touched Rollins, but he goes in 10th round. Who would?
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely really a top tier player, and is rightfully seen as such by Vince apparently. But I mean, he delivers every time, so I'm completely fine for the roles that they have had him in near the top of the card. It is. You look at our list, though. There are some, your Randy Ortons and folks like that. Even with their legendary status and being full time right now, neither of us.
I know we didn't. Neither of us touched Jeff Hardy either. So.
Looking at both of those, I've been hot or cold through the years on Randy. I think he's doing some of his best work now. I didn't want to take the time to give a pick. When I had so many other younger talents I wanted to get on there for someone like Randy. And Hardy I like much better than I do Randy in general.
Yes.
But it's sort of the same thing. Unlike an AJ who seems to have a lot still in the tank.
Yep.
I think that Jeff is probably much closer to the end of what he has to offer, and I don't know that I see him so much as the mentor type behind the scenes because of his more unusual mercurial personality.
That's what I was gonna say. Is you could try and put him in a Matt type role, but like Matt's doing in AEW, but I don't think that will work with Jeff because Matt is the Hardy with the business sense that the understanding of the business, and Jeff is the one is the charismatic enigma. I mean,
And obviously, you took a lot of the folks that I also had on my short list, but a couple of folks, if I'd have had more picks and didn't want to, I had AJ and then I had Slash or Daniel Bryan if Doug picks AJ. I think that Daniel Bryan could serve that same role as a guy who still can perform in some bigger matches when you need him to. But at this point in his career, he's also would be an excellent mentor and teacher, and just like Sammy would be. You saw, you've seen Sammy at the Performance Center before, footage of him coaching others, and he's an excellent coach. So I think that Daniel Bryan is one, and I like to have taken the New Day for my tag team division, but I just ran out of picks.
I know. I
think between you taking the Usos and me taking the Street Profits, I think if you threw the New Day in, that's really the three tag teams I would say that legitimate tag teams that WWE has right now.
Yeah.
And that's how how empty those tanks are. So a little review here. So for Monday Night Raw, we have Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, Sasha Banks, the Street Profits, Keith Lee, Ricochet, Zelina Vega, Bianca Belair, Dominic Dijakovic, and Seth Rollins.
Yes.
And for SmackDown, Doug,
we have Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman and Samoa Joe. Naomi, the Usos, KO, Sami Zayn, Bobby Lashley, Alexa Bliss, Aleister Black, Bayley, and Mustafa Ali.
So, folks, that is the Two Bows Wrestling Show 2020 draft. I don't know, just sitting here looking at Doug's list and looking at mine, that I could say definitively that I won or he won, because I would watch both of those shows.
You know, I mean, just looking at our picks, and we left a lot of big names off here. We did, and you know, I think we went with some fantasy booking options. You know, just looking at our list here, but there's just such a wealth of talent. You know, I guess it does benefit the WWE for being the only game in town where, and even when they weren't, it was obvious that they were no longer the only game in town. They were still the game with a lot more money to throw at people, so they could buy up all the toys just to put them on the shelf, which is what they did there for the longest time. So
some of the talent that you and I picked, Doug, I mean, if you're looking at Aleister Black or Ricochet, Mustafa Ali, I'd say that there's a case, and Naomi, I think there's a case to be made that these are people that are kind of on the shelf. They're on the roster, but are they doing all they could with them, considering the potential that they have? I don't think so. And the fact that you and I would put those folks so high on our picks shows that at least we have some differences of opinion of the writers and the bookers right now, as far as who's worth investing that kind of time and money into.
Right.
So, folks, leave us in the comments here. Who do you think won? Did Doug win? Did Doug and his version of SmackDown win? Or is my Monday Night Raw the brand that you would choose between these two? I don't think you can go wrong either way, but we're curious to know what you think. So let us know who you think won. Let us know who you would take. If you had a couple of picks that you just had to say, the top 2 or 3 guys on Raw or SmackDown to build a show around, let us know who you think.
Are we wrapping up?
That was fun.
That was fun. I know we're a little bit off our normal format, and I'm completely out of the wrestling game because of like real life work. Do you have any picks for this week, Kevin?
We'll go through a few fast ones, Doug. I'm going to go for my embarrassment of the week.
All right.
Something that happened on AEW. There was in the opening match, FTR and Best Friends were having a match for the tag team titles, and I love both those teams, and the match was going well enough. I'm not sure if this was what they had planned, but essentially what happened to end that match is the ref ducked. He was in the ropes with the talent, and the ref ducked because he could see that there was a belt shot coming for Chuck Taylor's head, and the ref was in the way. So the ref ducks to miss the belt shot, which of course hits Chuck Taylor as was originally planned by FTR, and then Chuck goes down like a ton of bricks, and the ref counts 1, 2, 3. I'm thinking if you saw the belt coming because they're swinging it at you, you'd have to know that it probably connected. So I don't know if they meant for it to look like that, or if it was just one of those awkward live things where it's live and we can't do anything about it.
Right.
It looked awful. It looked ridiculous that he would go count to 3 on a man that he knows just got hit over the head with a foreign object.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's my slight embarrassment of the week. My match of the week, Doug, as far as what you should go back and see, I know this was a big week for AEW because they did their anniversary show, and there was a couple matches that I thought would end up being in my match of the week, but I hate to say it, I really do think that NXT on this night outdid them match-wise, because Candice LeRae and Shotzi Blackheart put on a contest that was my favorite match of the entire week, and just barely beat out her own husband, who Johnny Gargano had a match right before that with Austin Theory that was also off the charts. Obviously, you put Mr. and Mrs. Wrestling in anything, and they're going to excel, but their opponents did as well, because Austin Theory is magic in the ring, and Shotzi is nothing but a ball of charisma who's got big things for her, I think. But go back and check out Candice LeRae and Shotzi Blackheart, Doug. That's my match of the week. For my performer of the week, I'm going to give it to Roman Reigns. I'm going to give it to Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. There was a finish on SmackDown where Roman had this pretty brutal big man matchup with Braun Strowman in what will be Braun Strowman's final SmackDown contest for now. And Jay comes out to the ring, and it was just one of those things where the acting of Roman Reigns is so much better in a heel persona than it ever worked as far as it did, when he was trying to be forced on us as a babyface. Go back and watch the end of that. If I give you some advice and something else to watch, because I mean it's one of those. He beat Braun Strowman, and then while he's having his confrontation with his cousin, he then continues to, like with a chair, just to pummel Braun. And one of those, if I would do this to him, imagine what I will do to you, kind of like things. Like, he's like, I love you, but if I would do this to him, imagine what I would do to you. And Jay had an equally fine performance in that, he fought back and eventually was pummeling Roman at one point with a chair going, I love you too, as he smacked that crap out of him.
Okay, I got to go back and watch that.
It was just great professional wrestling style acting by both of these guys, where it just really fits the storyline and just goes to show that Roman is, after all these years, finally living up to all the potential that management saw in him by just that little tweak. That little tweak, you put Paul Heyman next to him, and suddenly you and I are both fighting for him for the first guy we want on our brand. And that is crazy.
6 months ago, if you would have said that. 4 months, 3 months ago, if you would have told us this.
Never would have thought it, my friend. Never would have thought it. But that's the world of professional wrestling this week, and that's my picks in our big finish. That's the 1, 2, 3. Doug, unless you have anything else for the people, this was a fun exercise. Let's make this an annual thing ourselves. When they do the draft, we need to do a draft.
Absolutely, I enjoyed this. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. I've been Doug.
I've been Kevin.
And
next week is Hell in a Cell, folks.
Oh man, another pay-per-view already?
It's pay-per-view time, Doug, and you've got a whole month worth of since the last pay-per-view of wrestling to catch up on.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to need a new job if I'm ever going to be able to catch up with wrestling. Oh, thanks everybody.